Kelly Rowe, and welcome to the Rowe Report with SB Nation's Pride of Detroit. So, training camp is done, preseason games are over, it's showtime. Whether it's a promising rookie or an off-season acquisition, training camp and preseason games bring hope, expectations, aspirations. They inspire. And sometimes those things work out, and other times they don't. I took a look at those last couple of seasons to see whether those training camp and preseason takeaways did or did not work out. Let's start with 2017, the summer of Kenny Golladay. The promising third rounder stole the show at training camp. Golladay excited spectators by dominating red zone drills. This was especially exciting considering in 2016 the Lions' red zone conversion rate struggled, scoring just 54% of the time, 17th in the league. During Detroit's first preseason game against the Colts, he caught 2 touchdown passes from Jake Rudolph, racking up 53 yards in 3 catches. By mid-August, he was promoted to the first-team offense, joining Golden Tate and Marvin Jones when the Lions went 3 wide in drills. Chad Johnson, formerly known as Ocho Cinco and one of the best receivers of his time, visited the Lions training camp and was particularly smitten with Golladay. Well, he was right, and those training camp and preseason expectations did pan out. Last year, Golladay reached his first 1,000-yard season. Despite a new offense expected to focus a bit more on the running game, he's likely poised for a breakout season, telling the Free quote, "I can be a 100-catch guy." Number 2, Teez Tabor. Training camp was the beginning of the struggles for the second-round pick. After facing heavy criticism for his slow 40 time at the Combine, his difficulties continued with an inconsistent camp. Despite glimpses of skill with pass breakups, he was regularly beaten, often by fellow rookie Kenny Golladay. He showed some promise during joint practices with the Colts that year, holding his own against star receiver T.Y. Hilton. He said it was about 50-50 between ups and downs. Cornerback is one of the hardest positions to play in the league, and players take some time to develop in this role. But these observations were clearly indicative of the future. Falling short of expectations, Teez continued to struggle since that training camp. In 2017, he recorded 11 tackles and 0 passes defended in 10 games. He started just 1, and he played about 18% of snaps on defense. In 2018, he had more tackles, 28 in 12 games, starting 4 of those games. He played about 28% of snaps. But in his short time on the field, he failed to stand out and only saw real playing time when the team was plagued by injuries late in the season. And since then, as you're all well aware, Teez has been cut, and he cleared waivers. Those training camp observations that there was something to worry about were correct. 2018 was the debut of rookie running back Kerryon Johnson. It was the first chance we got a look at the future of the Lions' backfield. After a quiet start, Johnson quickly stole the spotlight. The second-round pick's crisp route running paired with his good vision and speed began turning heads. Not only did he shine running the ball, he proved he can catch too. Training camp viewers were first surprised after Johnson, who had 55 catches in 3 years at Auburn, pulled a double move on his defender to make this flashy diving catch for a 30-yard gain. Observers also took note of his proficiency in pass protection drills. Though a knee injury kept him off the field for 6 games, Johnson racked up 4 touchdowns, 641 rushing yards on 118 carries, and 32 receptions for 213 receiving yards in 2018. He averaged 5.4 yards per carry, second in the league, and ended the Lions' 70-game drought without a 100-yard rusher. With a new offense this year that'll increase his workload, especially if he inherits Theo Riddick's targets, Johnson is poised for another outstanding season. After a strong training camp, Johnson was expected to emerge as the Lions' leading rusher. These observations and expectations very clearly did pan out. Next up, DeSean Slay. Signing a 1-year, $3.5 million deal in the offseason, the cornerback looked pretty promising as he was battling it out with Nevin Lawson and Teez Tabor during training camp for that starting spot opposite Darius Slay. Slay saw most of the first-team reps throughout training camp. Starting off with a strong lead, he was impressive, looking real sticky in coverage, able to hold his own. He was being praised as one of the Lions' most underrated offseason signings. But then strained quads sidelined him for 2 preseason games, imperative reps to secure a spot. He showcased all he had on the field in the finale against the Browns, but it wasn't enough. Slay ended up being a roster cut casualty. However, Shed was re-signed after Slay suffered a concussion a few weeks later. He played only 25% of snaps, tallying 18 tackles and 1 forced fumble in 12 games. Shed returned to the Seahawks this offseason, but has since been released. The preseason prediction that he secured that spot did not pan out. That brings us to 2019. So what did we see this year? Following the same pattern, 2019 first-round pick TJ Hockenson living up to the hype. He absolutely shined at training camp. The athletic 6'5", 251-pound rookie consistently displaying both pass-catching and blocking skill. NFL Network analyst Daniel Jeremiah called him the best blocking tight end he's ever evaluated, expecting he'll have an immediate impact. He's still a rookie, but all signs point to good things. Number 2, Justin Coleman, the nickel corner and former Patriot, was signed to a 4-year, $36 million contract, but looked a little inconsistent in training camp early on. A few days into August, he dropped to the second-team defense, replaced by Jamal Agnew, and was losing reps. But he played pretty consistently throughout preseason with the first-team defense alongside Slay and Rashaan Melvin as a top 3 corner. At 4 tackles and 1 forced fumble in 3 games, he's listed opposite Slay on the depth chart, so only time will tell if these early training camp struggles meant anything at all. And finally, Tom Savage. Out of the gate, he looked like the clear frontrunner for the backup quarterback job. He looked good in the first preseason game, but suffered a concussion. The Lions signed veteran Josh Johnson. He played. David Fales played, Luis Perez was signed and played, but Savage returned in the preseason finale against the Browns. He struggled a bit, but the offensive line was full of third stringers and wasn't looking too good. Johnson did well that game, going 9 for 15 for 157 yards and a touchdown. It was still expected that Savage would make the roster based on his history of stronger play. Plot twist. Savage was cut, Josh Johnson stays, and so does David Blau, who the Lions had just traded for right after he was picked off twice by the Lions defense in the final preseason game. So what do all these training camp and preseason hopes, expectations, dreams mean? Well, everything and nothing all at the same time, because that's preseason. And with that, this has been the Rowe Report. I'm Kelly Rowe. Thanks for watching.